Hey, what's going on, guys? Back again with a new video today. My god, there is so much to talk about. So, you may have seen by now, Naughty Dog did announce two things at the Game Awards a few nights back. And before we get to the bombshell itself, first things first, Naughty Dog did announce that The Last Part 2 Remastered is finally coming to PC. Finally, of course, we've been waiting for this for so long now. Made a previous video talking about this, about when it would be showing up, and it's coming out on April 3rd, 2025. It should be expected, of course, especially with The Last of Us HBO Season 2 dropping early 2025, to have both those released at the same time. Of course, people want to play Part 2, but also watch the show. They'll definitely get a lot of sales just by doing that, so glad to see we finally have that announcement out now. Can't wait to play it, of course. But secondly, we have the hugest bombshell of them all. Naughty Dog did announce a brand new game coming, a brand new franchise, I should say, which is, my god, insane to think about. A brand new franchise from Naughty Dog? What? The game isn't even out, and they said this is a franchise, but the game is called Intergalactic, the Heretic Prophet. Quite a mouthful of a name, but either way, Intergalactic is Naughty Dog's next new game. Holy crap, I am so excited. You guys have no idea, of course, because I did mention a few years back that I thought that after Last Part 2's release, that we could potentially see a sci-fi game from Naughty Dog. I didn't know, that was just my guess. It's been an idea that people have been wanting to see for some time now, ever since The Last of Us. There's been little subtle hints and little references to space and sci-fi stuff in The Last of Us, especially with Savage Starlight being sort of a main focal point with Ellie. With Ellie having Savage Starlight comic books, you see all the promos around. But then also, they had a lot of different Savage Starlight items in Uncharted 4 as well. And also, of course, if you include the Uncharted 4 multiplayer skins for all the different cast of characters having Savage Starlight theme outfits. So it just seemed like a subtle hint that Naughty Dog was going to be making a sci-fi game at some point. And after nearly 10 plus years later, we are finally getting a sci-fi game. Like, holy shit, that is insane. We are living in a timeline where Naughty Dog is making a sci-fi game. I'm still just struck by that. It's funny too, because I did mention a few years back that I did think after Part 2 we would be getting a sci-fi game.
So with that being said, Naughty Dog is surely working on a new IP, and many people have been theorizing on the internet that Naughty Dog's new IP will be a story-driven sci-fi game, and that sci-fi game could possibly be Savage Starlight. And many people, including myself, have been hoping that Savage Starlight could possibly be Naughty Dog's new IP after The Last of Us Part 2. As ridiculous as it may sound, I'm surely hoping it becomes an actual thing.
Yeah, so with that said, it's just awesome to see that this actually came true. This has been a dream for so long now, the fact that we actually got one. Of course, it's not called Savage Starlight, but back then, I thought it was just a working title, so who knows, maybe it was called Savage Starlight back then, but they changed the title to Intergalactic. But either way, with all that said, in this video, I wanted to go over my thoughts and impression of the game, of what I think it's going to be like, what the story's going to be like, and also the gameplay itself, which I have a lot to say because I think this game in particular will be completely different from anything Naughty Dog has made in the past. It won't be your typical Uncharted or Last of Us third-person shooter genre type game. I think this game will definitely be a different type of game in itself. From previous interviews that Neil Druckmann has stated about their direction to what they make next, so I'll jump into that a little bit later, but let's just jump right in and talk about the game itself. The game itself is set in an alternate universe where space travel has significantly advanced by 1986. So obviously this game is taking inspiration from media that are taking place in the 80s, but in the future, which I gotta say, such an awesome take from Naughty Dog to do. I thought they would go for the more futuristic future, being in the 2099, those type of years, but they're taking a lot of inspiration for the 80s future, which I gotta say, I love that so much. Was not my first idea that they would go for when it comes to sci-fi, but I definitely dig it a lot. The game is also taking inspiration from classic animes like the movie Akira and Cowboy Bebop, which I can say I haven't watched either one of them, but with this game taking some inspiration, I may just have to do so. The game has been in development for about 4 years now, which is crazy to think about. They started development during the launch of Last of Us Part 2, so it has been some time now. From within 2020 to 2024, we've gone to Last of Us Part 2, The Last of Us Part 1 remake, and of course Last of Us Part 2 remastered, so they've been quite busy with this game while also releasing Last of Us games, coincidentally. But then again, they were also actively working on The Last of Us Online, which of course didn't come out, got cancelled because the studio preferred to just work on single player games over being fully focused on a live service multiplayer title, which makes total sense. I'd much prefer Naughty Dog to work on single player games over multiplayer any day. So yeah, this game's kind of been through different loops here and there with Last of Us development, but now it's here, so glad we are here to finally see it. This game will also be Naughty Dog's first standalone female protagonist. Obviously, we've had female protagonists in the past, like Ellie from Last of Us Part 2 and Chloe Fraser from Uncharted: The Lost Legacy, but this will be our first main star protagonist in their own mainline game, which is just awesome to see. So our new Naughty Dog main protagonist's name is Jordan A. Munn, who is a dangerous bounty hunter who ends up on this stranded planet, whose communication with the outside universe went dark hundreds of years ago. That's all we know of the story so far, of course. Naughty Dog's going to give us more information of what exactly is going on in this game, but we play as a bounty hunter, which is pretty sick. Can't deny that. And judging by Jordan's personality, she seems a bit, very upfront character, which is quite different. Well, in some capacity, similar to Ellie. I'm so excited to see Jordan's character, get invested with this character, and see where she comes from. We kind of see a little bit of her backstory, judging by the photos on the ship she's on with a bunch of crewmates, so those would probably be some pretty major characters right there that we'll get introduced to into this whole new world, which I can't wait to see. I'm already noticing a lot of famous actors in this game, which to me personally, it's awesome to see that, but it's just a little weird. I don't know if that's just only a me thing, because whenever you play a game, you usually expect the usual actors, voice actors like, Nolan North, Troy Baker, which he is in this game as well, but I'm noticing there's a lot more TV, movie actors in this game, but of course that's not an issue. It's just so weird to me just to see them in a video game, but no issue with that. I mean, Naughty Dog has done it in the past previously, like with Logic in The Last Part 2 as a Rattler, and Jeffrey Wright as Isaac in Part 2 as well, so it's not an uncommon thing, Naughty Dog has the money, so they got the bank to bring in some pretty well-known and great actors, so awesome to see that. There was a lot of advertisements as well, which people have pointed out as well, like Sony, Adidas, but that's just a common thing, I guess, with Sony games now. They just have product placements around, which, cool, I don't think much to it. But besides that point, I'm excited to get invested into this world and these characters just as much as I did with Joel and Ellie in The Last of Us, or Nathan Drake, Sully, and Elena in Uncharted. It's going to be interesting to see on how I feel about these characters compared to Naughty Dog's other previous characters from other series, so I don't know if I'll like them more than Last of Us characters or Uncharted characters, but I'm just excited to see Naughty Dog's take on these characters in a sci-fi world, so we'll just have to wait and see. Oh yeah, I should also point out as well, the lady with the eye patch is played by Haley Grouse, who is actually a writer for The Last Part 2, which is actually kind of funny, but cool to see that she's also in the game as well. But yeah, no, that's about how I feel about this whole story right now so far. We don't know too much about it besides the fact that Jordan is heading towards this planet that has no sort of communication at all. So we don't really know what else there is to the story besides just that at the moment. Of course, Naughty Dog will give us more information on the game next year, and most likely some gameplay, which let's talk about that right now. So I mentioned at the beginning of this video that I wanted to go into the gameplay itself and talk about what I will think the gameplay will be like. Judging from just the first trailer, we did get to see Jordan with a saber sword, which is just so fucking cool. I gotta say that. The fact that we're gonna actually have some melee combat in a Naughty Dog game, which I would assume is the main weapon we'll be using. It's awesome to see that. With that huge robot as well. Really reminiscent of some sort of thing you would see in Jak and Daxter. But besides that point, how will the gameplay be for this game? Because judging from the first trailer, it looks drastically different, being mainly melee combat going on here. We do see Jordan has a gun as well, so the gun can play some sort of part in the game itself, but as of right now, we just don't know. She just has a saber sword and that's it. We can have an idea of what to expect, how the gameplay is going to be like, because I've talked about this in my previous video, but in previous interviews, Naughty Dog's co-president, Neil Druckmann, has stated that they want to focus less on the usual linear single-player narrative that they're usually used to doing, like, in Last of Us and Uncharted, and go for more player freedom, essentially allowing the players to learn about the world itself, similar to games like Bloodborne or Dark Souls. When it comes to those games, the narrative in those games are more about its world and kind of figuring out things as you play through the game. So the game won't technically be holding your hand as a normal linear game would be doing, which Naughty Dog has been doing for the longest time. So now with Intergalactic, this will be Naughty Dog's first game that'll be less linear narrative and more of an open world type of narrative. But this isn't the first time that Naughty Dog has explored this idea, because when Naughty Dog released the Grounded 2 documentary, a documentary focusing on The Last Part 2's development, they mentioned while developing The Last Part 2, they took inspiration from Bloodborne of all games. They liked the idea of being able to just explore the narrative in a more open world setting, and at the time, Ellie didn't even have a gun. They wanted the gameplay to be more focused on combat rather than gunplay. But of course, this was just an early iteration of Part 2, and things just weren't coinciding with the story itself and the narrative they're trying to push with Part 2, so they decided to scrap this idea. But now with Intergalactic, they can finally make this idea happen and completely make something brand new with it. And now with the announcement of Intergalactic, Naughty Dog has even gone on to state that our narrative goals are rivaled only by our gameplay ambitions. This will be the deepest gameplay in Naughty Dog's history, taking our learnings from our previous franchises and pushing them beyond anything we've ever done before. Obviously, it's a little vague, but still, I still think they're going to try to do something new with this game in terms of gameplay, pushing for a more player freedom narrative where the player will try to explore the whole world and kind of understand what is going on. Obviously, there will be some sort of linear narrative through the story while you're playing it, but I definitely think with the way they're approaching this game will definitely be pretty new and refreshing to see on how they can do it, because Naughty Dog has always been a traditional linear single-player narrative studio. For them to go as far as to change the narrative a bit and let players do whatever they want and find out what exactly is going on in the world itself, it's just cool to see, honestly. I'm excited for this new approach of them doing the narrative differently. I'm still unsure of how the combat will play, whether it will be similar to Bloodborne or Dark Souls with melee combats, but we'll have to wait and see, of course, by next year and see just exactly how that will play out. But in terms of the narrative and the player freedom, I can't wait to see on how they'll delve into that later on once we get to see some actual gameplay. That's pretty much my thoughts on the gameplay. When do I think the game will even come out? That's the honest question. Well, we finally got a reveal for it this year in December 2024. I'd honestly have to say that this game won't be coming out until 2026, at the very late 2027. Naughty Dog has stated in the past that they won't be announcing games very early in development like they did with Last Part 2, which was announced back at PSX 2016. And of course, 4 years later, which, my god, that is such a long time, Part 2 would eventually come out in June 2020. So that was a whole 4 years of development, which, yeah, that's insane. They did want that game to come out in 2018, but with much delays and so much development with the game, it had to come out in 2020, so 2 years later. Which, wasn't the best time, of course, with COVID and all that. With this game's announcement, Intergalactic, I would like to assume that it's going to be coming out by 2026 at most, since they didn't even give us a release date at all, not even 2025, so at the very most, 2026 is my best bet, but we'll just have to wait and see. Alright guys, that is it for this video. Just wanted to give you guys my thoughts on Intergalactic. I'm very excited for this game. I'm so happy that we're going to be getting a sci-fi genre Naughty Dog game finally. After all these years, it's finally happening. I can't wait to see on how they're going to push the narrative with this game, and I'm also just excited just to get invested into this world and these characters that we have yet to, who they are, what they're like, and just to even get to know Jordan as well. It is kind of crazy to say that this is a franchise. Naughty Dog has stated that this is a franchise, so we're most likely going to get a sequel at some point. Maybe a third game, fourth game, who knows, but Intergalactic is going to be here for a while. It's going to be here for some time now, who knows, for the next 10 plus years, so we'll just see how far the story goes and what Naughty Dog plans to do with Intergalactic, but either way, I know Naughty Dog will deliver. I'm excited to see what Naughty Dog's going to do, as they always do, when it comes to pushing the boundaries with their games. But anyways, that is it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed watching this video about my excitement and my curiosity of Intergalactic. Be sure to like the video as well if you enjoyed. Be sure to subscribe for more Naughty Dog, Last of Us, Uncharted, and now Intergalactic videos. Kind of insane to say that, but alright guys, till then, I will see you guys next time.